We had a pretty lively council meeting on Tuesday, which made the council roundup we do each and every Wednesday that much more exciting. And it's an interesting display that I saw years ago when I started doing the council roundup. I was like, listen, we got sound bites we put out, but there's always a lot more substance to the conversations that are had, especially in a city like Springfield, where you've got a 10-person council, 11 if you include the mayor. But there are 10 unique and interesting individuals who are elected to these positions, and sometimes they see things differently. And yesterday with the council roundup, we heard just how people are seeing some things differently. And I'd like to get your thoughts on this. 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. You can always call in live and local. It is, of course, what we do here, take your phone calls. But I want to review some of, again, what happened at Tuesday's meeting, and in particular, some of the I guess, outbursts that we heard, and then hear your thoughts. Again, 217-629-7970. You can also email bishoponair@gmail.com. So what do we have happen? Background is, back in November of 2021, it was reported by the Illinois Times that there was an executive session. That's when legislators, like a city council, goes into a closed-door meeting, and without violating the Open Meetings Act, they have certain things that they can go back there to discuss. And, possible or probable litigation is one of them. I don't know if that's what this ultimately was about when they went back behind closed doors. I have to review the notes on that. But that meeting apparently was reported on by the Illinois Times in an overall conversation about debt forgiveness and how the city goes about forgiving certain debts. This deals with the Wyndham City Center. It's the tall building in downtown Springfield, right catty corner from the Bank of Springfield Center. Used to be the Hilton. Now it's the Wyndham City Center. They were having some problems, some financial problems, and they owed the city more than $1 million in utilities. And with that was about $250,000 in various fees. Well, in 2021, in November, Mayor Jim Langfelder brought aldermen back to discuss the debt. And we are likely going to hear that audio being released with a resolution brought up on Tuesday to allow for the release of that executive session audio. And that was because it was revealed, and some people want to make sure that nobody's mischaracterizing what was said behind closed doors back in November of 2021. And the question really comes down to, should aldermen, at least in my perspective, should aldermen have a say in forgiving this type of debt, this level of debt? And it's turning into a political conversation because we've got a mayoral election coming up here soon, where incumbent Mayor Jim Langfelder, who waived this debt unilaterally, is getting some flack from opponents. And one of those being the treasurer, Misty Buscher, having previously said that she wants to make sure that any debt forgiveness is voted upon by city aldermen. Now, whether or not that's economical, meaning, if they have to then go through and vote on every bit of debt relief, does that include the waiving of $20 fee that somebody may have gone through administrative court and said, hey, I'm not guilty of this, and therefore the fee's waived? No, you still got to pay it. But then somebody wants to take extrajudicial steps to waive that. Is that going to be something that's going to flood city aldermen with more and more things they have to look at? We've run into this before when it comes to contracts and what power the mayor has in forgiving, or not forgiving, but in granting contracts. There was talk about lowering the threshold down to like $20,000. So anytime there was a contract of $20,001, then city aldermen would have had to have heard the details about the contract and either voted on it on the consent agenda or voted on it on the debate agenda. And that would have caused a lot more workload for certain contracts to be approved. They put that threshold, I think, at $50,000. So anything below $50,000, aldermen just get a contract report, and that's how they ultimately deal with it. But if it's over $50,000, then aldermen have to vote on it. So you can see that if you move that threshold down a little bit, then all of a sudden you've got a flood of ordinances coming in to deal with contracts that are just meant to continue city operations moving forward. So similar debate, but this is about debt forgiveness. And it spilled over to, the fingers pointing back and forth. And we'll just play a couple of clips here from Tuesday's meeting, as we heard with the council roundup. But I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. Here is a little bit of the political back and forth and the voices you hear most. Alderman Joe McMiniman, also Alderman Chuck Redpath, and Alderman Ralph Hanauer. So here is Alderman Joe McMiniman laying out some of his thoughts on what's going on here behind the scenes when it comes to this issue of debt forgiveness.
Our treasurer doesn't go back there with us, so maybe she didn't know what we were talking about, unless someone here kind of clued her in. I don't know that.
Why are you even bringing
Why
it
are you
up?
making speculations?
Come on, guys. Come on. One at a time.
Ridiculous.
Everybody's important. Everybody's going to be heard, Alderman Redpath. Just put your light on and you'll get your turn, but we're not going to do this.
So Alderman McMiniman, he continues on and raises even more speculation as to what's behind this.
And I know I'm kind of outnumbered here by some of the loud talkers, but, I know some of them are sensitive because, I understand, Alderman Redpath, you've got a daughter running for a higher office.
Now, why do you got to bring that
Politics
stuff up?
out of
That's
it?
completely
Come on,
out
guys.
of order.
Come on. Okay, so
it's time for you to shut up, Joe.
Come on, guys.
You always do this stuff.
So I just wanted to encourage you to speak that way again, Ralph.
So, obviously, some heated conversation there, and I want to hear from you as to your thoughts on the politics of this. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hi. Well, first of all, anybody that talks like that, tell somebody to shut up. That's just classless over a situation like that. But anyway, wasn't this was already public like a long time ago. The public knew about this payment months ago.
Well, the public knew about the Wyndham paying the debts, because if you recall, during the summer of last year, this was, talked about, and Wyndham looking to get a new purchaser and somebody who would possibly change some hotel rooms into apartments. And in that conversation, spanned over several months, really. It was brought up before. A mayor said, hey, they're going to pay their debt. And the alder people were like, well, show us. Oh, they're going to wire it. I believe it's going to happen tomorrow. And that was some of the statements that were made. So we knew about them paying about $1.2 million, but we didn't. The first I knew about the debt being forgiven was this recent dust up, but that's only because of the fees that were forgiven ultimately.
Gotcha. I think ultimately, if the laws allow for the mayor to do what he did, then you can't blame the mayor. He had a job to make and do. That's it. Now, as far as whether people should have known or shouldn't have known, I mean, if the way the rules are written, I mean, they're written there for a reason. So.
Well, and do the rules need to be changed, though, to ensure that this type of thing doesn't happen? That's the question. I appreciate the call. We'll get to more of them. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning. This is strictly politics. There's no, I mean, if there was not a mayoral race going on, this would have been done with months ago, weeks ago, whatever. Let's listen to that tape and find out who in that meeting put their foot in their mouth, and then go from there. There's got to be some latitude here for the mayor, and with this thing, possible bankruptcy and everything else. So let the thing play out. Thank you. Well,
and I appreciate the call. We'll definitely be airing the tape once it's released, and you can guarantee you'll hear it in most of its entirety here on WMAY as we follow this, as we do each and every week. The Council Roundup, don't forget, Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Good morning. You're on WMAY. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it seemed a little lowbrow, kind of something you might hear in a bar room. But, it seems like we should have go back to the commissioner form of government, because that's when the city actually ran properly. You didn't have so many egotistical, basically just people with big egos that got a few votes, commissioner form of government was more efficient, and you didn't have all these problems then.
Well, if you want to go back to before there was a lawsuit that challenged that form of government because it was discriminatory towards people in certain areas of the city.
Yeah, I don't think it was.
Well,
That's
the court said back then disagree, but regardless, in the now, not going backwards, in the now, I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970, your reaction to the dust-up over this situation, but also what you think needs to happen here. Should city aldermen have more of a say in debt forgiveness? Good morning.
Hi, I just want to address a little piece of the pie because I've experienced it myself. I believe, I don't care if the aldermen go back and forth and what they say to each other, but I have gone up twice before the city council and feel bullied by the city council. So I think they should not be able to bully the people who come to testify before the city council. We're citizens, most of us tax-paying citizens. So there needs to be some pushback on that.
Yeah, and we see this from time to time, and even this past week with the Surf Springfield and the ordinance that was put up to block e-surfboards, and then they put it back in committee saying that they were going to revise it and make a larger ordinance, and then all of a sudden Tuesday they say, oh, we're bringing that out of committee all of a sudden, and the person who was there wanting to talk about it, an alderperson said, no, he can talk later, we'll deal with this next week, but it was up in front of the alder people. So yeah, that type of thing happens, and I've seen it happen before in the past as well in the 12, 13, 14 years or so I've been covering this. So that's an interesting point. Appreciate the call. More calls coming in. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, so McMiniman definitely is the type of guy that says what we're all thinking. And I'm pretty sure that everybody there was definitely thinking the same thing, but McMiniman was the only one to actually want to say it. And of course, that would tick off anyone at all. And, what Chuck said was definitely uncalled for and, not quorum at all. But I do think that you're on the right path for, they need to make a vote on, say, the rule does need to be changed. It needs to be about $50,000 or over. So any debt for forgiveness that's over $50,000 definitely needs to be brought to the table.
Yeah, and heard openly and discussed and voted upon. That seems to be the crux of what's going on here, but obviously the politics at play in rather spectacular fashion here. But, of course, hearing your thoughts at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here on WMAY.
And I know I'm kind of outnumbered here by some of the loud talkers, but, I know some of them are sensitive because, I understand, Alderman Redpath, you've got a daughter running for a higher office.
Now, why do you got to bring that
Politics
stuff up?
out of
That's
it?
completely
Come on,
out
guys.
of order.
Come on. Okay, so
It's time for you to shut up, Joe.
All right, your thoughts, 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY. You would have been. All right. Let's go to line 2. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, Greg. How you doing today?
Good. Yourself?
Doing very well. I was listening to this morning, and this is the third or fourth time I've heard the tapes, and the one thing that I can't help but see is that, as the head executive for Springfield, he negotiated the drawings of fees so that he could get a payment, and he basically got $3 on every dollar for a payment that they could have went into bankruptcy and absolved themselves of anyway. So, isn't it important to let our executives have the ability to negotiate deals in which we get more money? And the thing is it's going to be very hard to get 10 people to agree on that because a lot of people will look at that and say, well, net, we lost. But the fact is without those fees, we may not get any of that money.
Yeah, and I think they did get that wire of $1.2 million, and it was the fees associated with it that were ultimately waived. But yeah, I mean, if they didn't come to some terms, they could have declared bankruptcy and tried to get out of that debt through the bankruptcy courts. And that was obviously a concern. So yeah, interesting perspective.
And I think that's kind of my point is our executive officers for our city, for our state, should have a little bit of leeway when it comes to stuff like this because they got more money than they would have anyway.
Interesting. Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate the call, and we'll take one more before the break, which I am woefully late for, guys. All right, 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
The thing that concerns me is that all of these deals being done behind the closed doors, and we don't get to know about it. That's what bothers me. What other deals are being done behind closed doors?
Sure.
And that's it is not a good image at all.
We want transparency. We want open government. There's no question about it. And is this something that highlights how some instances we don't have as much transparency as we should have? I appreciate the perspective and everybody chiming in. We are late for a break, but hopefully I got you guys to your parking lot for work without having to, wait. Oh, no, who's going to say what? So, okay, it's safe for you to get out of your car now and go clock in and get ready for the 8:30 shift to start, okay? So make that happen. It is Springfield's Morning News. Love hearing from you guys. Thanks for chiming in at 217-629-7970. On this Thursday, what a ride it has been thus far, all right? Much more coming up here on WMA.